You're listening to Secret Sonics, a podcast exploring the creative side of music production. Hello and welcome back to Secret Sonics. I am your host, Ben Wallach. My guest today is Joshua Sarubin. Joshua is an accomplished senior executive currently at Warner Music Group who has found success with many artists, having sold over 40 million albums worldwide, and including the following acts: the Presidents of the United States of America, Lionel Richie, Avril Lavigne, Lady Gaga, Pink, Santana, Citizen Cope, Pixie Lott, Butch Walker, Stabbing Westward, and Ingrid Michaelson. Josh has been super gracious and agreed to join me on the show despite all the craziness happening around the world. So thank you for doing that, and welcome to the show, Josh. It's an honor to have you here.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. I'm so psyched. Yeah, so usually this podcast is about, music producers and engineers and stuff, so I'm psyched to have somebody who understands the music business as like a bigger scope, which I think will be really interesting for our listeners.
Excellent.
So tell us a bit about how you got started getting involved in the music industry and I guess A&R specifically.
A very typical story to many A&R people. Was a musician, played in high school, played a little in college, realized that I was neither good enough nor wanted to practice enough to take it anywhere. Wanted to be a part of it, worked at record stores, and I got hooked up with a job at Sony Music as a college rep, promoting and marketing their quote-unquote college-oriented music to the audiences. I was in D.C., so it was Baltimore and Washington. And then when I graduated, I managed to get a job at the local branch in Washington and was there for a year and wanted to move to New York. I managed to get a job in New York at Columbia Records as a metal retail person. And it was a long time ago. And then I kept bugging the head of A&R with bands and bringing him music, and finally he gave me an A&R job. And here I am many years later. Wow,
what was the first group that you brought in?
The first thing I signed was a group called Cathedral. It was a British heavy metal group. Black Sabbath,
like Spinal Tap or something.
Not as cheesy, just sort of heavy, slow rock, like Black Sabbath, that type of stuff. Yeah, I sort of started, as I said, in metal, so that's where I was until I was able to branch out into other styles and so forth.
That's awesome. So from what I understand, the definition of A&R has evolved a lot recently. Can you tell me a bit about the ways it's changed and what A&R reps are mostly doing these days in 2020?
I think, first of all, the way that you receive and process music is obviously completely different. When I started, if you wanted to see a group in Little Rock, Arkansas, you got on a plane and went to Little Rock, Arkansas. Now you watch their video on YouTube. So I think that aspect of it is pretty awesome. The fact that you're able, to see an act in Israel. I mean, you don't have to travel and you have access to all this music, which makes things a little easier. I also think less developing things are signed nowadays. It's more things that have already had success on one of the DSPs, Spotify or Pandora, Amazon. And less about, hey, I found this amazing singer and I think I can mold her and, turn her into the next, Alicia Keys. I'm just making stuff up. And it just doesn't exist for many reasons. I think that they like to go for more sure things. Development takes a lot of time and money and is certainly not a sure thing. So there are a couple of acts that still get signed that way, but rarely. And
do you miss those olden days with those that kind of development?
I do. I mean, that's what was always fun to me. I mean, yes, it's great to see, like the Presidents of the United States of America.
I love that group, by the way.
Awesome. We're already doing extremely well. They were, selling out big theaters in Seattle, and they had a song, on the alternative chart. Like, they were already doing well, and that was amazing, and I loved them the first time I saw them. But it's much more fun to me to create, or help the artist create, I should say, this thing, to take someone like Avril Lavigne is a good example, because when I first met her, she was a girl that had 2 country-ish demos, and some bad bad cornrows and braces. And so to take, but had this great voice, and to take her from that to sing, what she became, and what that first album became, it was pretty awesome.
Wow. That's amazing. So what's your role as an A&R executive, and how does that differ from what you were doing kind of at the beginning when you were more on the ground with artists?
So now I'm the head of the global A&R for Warner Music. So basically, I'm there to sort of be a connector and a helper and another A&R person for everything around the world other than the U.S. But I do some things with Nashville as well. And also set up features and collaborations and getting people on other, songs. And it's a lot of the development that we were just talking about, because you have, an act from Denmark that, wants to break worldwide, and putting that puzzle together, whether it's a new song or, like I said, getting them on somebody else's song or somebody else in theirs. It's back to that basically puzzle that I love to work on. So that's partially how it's different. And also now, I don't go out as much. I'm not looking to sign stuff as much as I used to. It's more working on stuff that, and artists that already exist.
Got it. So you mentioned that you run these songwriting camps with Warner artists. Can you tell us a bit about that? That sounds really cool.
So in an effort to help the other countries, I have set up camps, a few in Sweden, where they come in and work with some of the Swedish producers and top liners, the melody lyricist people, and develop some songs that they just wouldn't have the opportunity, not because these countries can't afford it, but it's more just nobody helps them set it up, and they don't know. So it gives them the opportunity to work with all of these great producers in a really amazing creative environment. And on top of all that, we're able to get collaborations and so forth right then and there. So, you really accomplish a lot with those camps. And I had one set up for Nigeria for next month, but obviously that is not happening. And another one in Sweden, which, they've both been postponed. But they will happen. It's just...
it's a matter of time.
Yeah, summer, fall, whenever we're done with all of this.
Wow, speaking of the crisis that we're dealing with as a world, like, how are the major labels dealing with this? Is it affecting anything?
I mean, it's obviously affected physical sales, of which there still is plenty, and certainly around the world. Maybe less in the U.S., but there still are physical sales, and that's way down. The touring and merchandise in many ways is sort of out the window for the time being, and the record companies do a lot of 360 deals, so they, get a piece of that. So if that's down too, it's a problem. And streaming has been down. I'm sure it'll come back up, but it has been a tiny bit low the past 2 weeks, I believe.
Really? I guess I would find that surprising, but I guess if you think about it, people often listen on the go, on the run. And if they're cooped up, they're more likely to, be in front of a screen or something. Yeah,
I think I thought the same thing. I was like, wow, Netflix and the record labels really won with this. But I guess, maybe people don't listen to music as much if they're anxious or if they're angry or if, I don't know,
That's really interesting.
I guess we'll see. But, they're operating like it's relatively normal. We still are all working and we still have the conference calls and we're still trying to make things happen. Obviously it's, in my, people aren't recording. I needed to get an engineer to have this artist sing, on a track, and I can't in LA, and I can't find somebody who will drive over there. It's pretty crazy.
Wow. Are you finding that some of the artists are able to kind of do recordings by themselves in their home studios?
Yeah, a lot of them are doing that, and a lot of them are doing live videos to have on Songkick or stuff on YouTube, and I think that they're all stuff on Instagram. They're all trying to make the best of the situation. So
wow. So to jump back into what you usually do, could you tell us a bit about how you facilitate different artists working together, be it remixes, collaborations, otherwise? How do you think about combinations and how do you pitch it to the artists?
Well, I'll have a discussion with the A&R, the country that the artist is signed to, and discuss maybe what they want, what they're looking for. Maybe they want something more urban, or they want something that's more pop, and we'll put a pop artist on it and then get it remixed. It's really what they're looking for or what makes sense. For example, Germany has a extremely large Turkish population, of Turkish descent, I should say. They're German, but of Turkish descent. And they, it makes sense to do, Turkish artists guesting on tracks in Germany and German artists in Turkey and things like that just make sense to do. Or we did some sort of remix collaborations of, Stormzy. He's a British rapper. I don't know if you know him or not.
Sounds familiar, but I'm not familiar with it.
All good. So we decided that we would do 4 different remixes in other countries within Europe to try to build his popularity in there. And we did it in Sweden and Germany and France and Italy, and it really helped. He saw big spikes in those markets. And I'm sure if or when he tours there, he'll see more love than maybe had he gone without it.
That's amazing. How do you push those tracks? Is it like through traditional radio, or is it more about
sometimes
like Spotify playlists?
Sometimes they'll just put it up on Spotify and try to get it playlisted, try to get track of the week. And if radio picks up on it or they love it more than the single, they'll go with that. I think it really depends, but I think the idea is obviously just to get it out as quickly as possible and then sort of go from there. It's just so different now how music is consumed and how you're able to read what is happening and what isn't. I think some of the record companies put the album out, for example, and then wait to see which track is doing the best and then go with that as a single, as opposed to finding the single, going with it, and then coming with the album. So it's pretty interesting. I mean, it's kind of a interesting way to do it. But it's more
like data based and less instinctual based.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole business for the most part. It's traditional A&R people aren't as necessary anymore because, like I said, that developing or signing things based on your gut just isn't really part of the business anymore. So they're either running departments or they're not in it because it's, which makes sense. I mean, it's always been a young person's game. So
right. I hear that. I guess what do you love the most about the new era of A&R as opposed to what it used to be?
The access to music is just fantastic. I mean, the fact that there's all this music all over the world, and part of this is from my job, but there's so much amazing music out there that I would never know about, and now you have access to all of it. And if you click on one, you can find out 10 others that are similar. It's just incredible. I think it's one of the best things to really happen to music is the access.
That's awesome. Did you feel like me that, the Billie Eilish, cleaning up at the Grammys was like a kind of a sign that like the times have really fully changed at this point? I don't know if you felt that way.
Yeah, I totally felt that way. It felt like it's not the first time. That's a cop out, but it felt like it was a watershed moment for things, that this artist who came out of nowhere, who was really fan based before they were, industry based, did so well, and she deserved it. She really did. I love Lizzo, and she's our artist. And
I love her record, by the way.
She probably deserved more than she got, but I'm not bitching over Billie Eilish winning all that. So, I mean, also like she's just so, she doesn't dress the way a pop female would necessarily dress, and doesn't act the way that they would act. I think it's really cool that she's just her own human.
Totally. And you know what, to be honest, because Lizzo did win some stuff at the Grammys, that kind of got me into checking out her stuff, and I really dig it.
Yeah, so she's great.
She definitely did well enough for at least me to kind of check it out.
Yeah, she's awesome live too. I definitely
she got an amazing voice.
Definitely recommend a live show.
Okay, cool. I'll check it out. So, kind of, I guess, shifting gears into the audience of my show, which are more musicians and producers.
Right.
What are some ways that musicians and producers, like helping musicians, can stand out to major labels and audiences nowadays, in your opinion?
I mean, there's the obvious way. I know everybody's sick of hearing this, to put your music up on the DSPs through CD Baby or whatever makes sense, and then try to promote it, try to get it playlisted, try to